a budget brought forward by a Labour government that sought to continue Tory austerity and damage the most vulnerable people in our society. Then SNP MPs at Westminster would not vote for that budget because we want an end to austerity. That wouldn't bring down the government, but it would send them away to think again and come back with a better budget. A budget that lifted people out of poverty, a budget that protected our National Health Service and our public services. And that, presiding officer, is the value of having a big team of SNP MPs at Westminster. We can lock the Tories out of government, but then we can make sure that the Tories are not simply replaced by a Labour Tory-light government. They're replaced by something better. And can I just remind Kezia Dugdale of this? It was Ed Miliband on live television last Thursday who said this, that he would rather not have a Labour government than work with the SNP. So can Kezia Dugdale confirm to me today, and I'm asking her a direct question here, if there is an anti-Tory majority on Friday morning, will Labour work with the SNP to get the Tories out, or will Labour stand back and watch David Cameron waltz back into Downing Street?
Kezia Dugdale.
Presiding Officer, the First Minister has a cheek to describe the Labour Party as Tory-light. There will be more progressive policies in the first week of an Ed Miliband government than there have been in 8 years of an SNP government. And David Cameron has said himself that he just needs one more seat than Labour across the UK to stay in office. Just one seat. We can vote for Labour on Thursday and start the process of changing our country on Friday, abolishing the need for food banks, calling time on zero-hour contracts, investing in our NHS, guaranteeing jobs for our young people, increasing the taxes for the rich and sharing that wealth across the whole of the United Kingdom. That's the kind of change that you only get with a Labour government. Isn't it the case that if you want a Labour government, you have to vote Labour tomorrow?
First Minister.
Well, the simple fact of arithmetic is this. If on Friday morning there are more Labour and SNP MPs in the House of Commons than there are Tory MPs, the only way that David Cameron and the Tories get back into number 10 Downing Street is if Ed Miliband and Labour hold the door open for them. I'm very clear. If there's an anti-Tory majority, the SNP will want to work with others to keep the Tories out. And you know, we've heard all of this from Labour before. Kezia Dugdale talks about zero-hours contracts, and I agree we need to get rid of exploitative zero-hours contracts. Tony Blair promised that 20 years ago, and under his government, zero-hours contracts increased by 40%. So the thing is, presiding officer, it's not enough for Scotland just to get rid of the Tories tomorrow. Of course we want to do that, but we must make sure that the Tories are replaced by something better than the Tories, and that's what a big team of SNP MPs can secure. An end to the Tories and a better government, a bolder, better, more progressive government to go in its place.
Ruth Davidson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the First Minister when she'll next meet the Prime Minister.
First Minister.
No plans in the near future.
Ruth Davidson.
We know who the First Minister wants to be Prime Minister on Friday morning. She wants Ed Miliband to be Prime Minister. And that's the man that Alex Salmond described as the weakest Labour leader I've seen in my political career. And for once, I agree with Alex. So can I ask, why does the First Minister want the weakest Labour leader in recent history to become Prime Minister? Can she tell me the top 3 things that make him the right man for the job?
First Minister.
I'll tell you the top thing. He's no a Tory. And I want the Tories out of office. Because you know what?
Order.
You know what? David Cameron's Tory-led government, and this is a serious point, has been devastating for vulnerable people across our country. David Cameron's Tory-led government has pushed more children into poverty. It has undermined our public services. It has held back our economy, and I want to see the back of it tomorrow. But just as I've said to Kezia Dugdale. I don't want David Cameron's Tory government to be replaced by Ed Miliband's Tory light government. I want a better government for Scotland. And the only way tomorrow we can make Scotland's voice heard, the only way tomorrow we can put an end to austerity, protection for public services, a stronger economy, right at the heart of the Westminster agenda, is to vote SNP. Because here's the truth: the more seats the SNP wins tomorrow, the more power Scotland will have.
Ruth Davidson.
If I had a pound for every time she said Tory today, I'd be on her wages. And that was it. That was the reason she wanted to put Ed Miliband into government, is because of her hatred of the Tories. And do you know what? I want people to vote positively tomorrow for an economic recovery that's created 100 Scottish jobs every day since we came to power, for a plan that's left fewer children in workless households than we've ever seen, for a government that will always back the Union, just as Scots voted for last year. Of course, Nicola Sturgeon doesn't want to put Ed Miliband in Downing Street because she thinks it will push independence further away. It's because she thinks it will bring independence closer. It's so she can hold a weak Labour Party to ransom and divide our nation forevermore. She and I both know there will be no post-election deals between our two parties. So isn't it the case, Presiding Officer, that while her party might be the party of independence, the Scottish Conservatives are the only party you can trust to safeguard the Union?
First Minister.
Ruth Davidson's perhaps stumbled across something, because it was interesting, was it not, that Kezia Dugdale didn't talk about independence today, which must be the first day in this election campaign Labour hasn't talked about independence. Maybe they've read the reports of the University of Edinburgh research that have been reported in the papers today, which found when Labour brings up the issue of independence, it increases support for the SNP. Making independence an issue, says the researcher, penalises Labour because voters perceive it as then being closer to the other unionist parties. In other words, it reminds voters of the Labour-Tory alliance. Well, tomorrow we've got an opportunity to do something better for Scotland. And where I will try to find a note of agreement with Ruth Davidson is on this point. I agree people should vote positively tomorrow. I agree people should vote positively tomorrow for a strong voice for Scotland in Westminster, for an end to austerity, for stronger investment in our public services and for a fairer economy that works for the many, not the few. That's why I say to everybody across Scotland, Presiding Officer, regardless of how they voted in the referendum, even if they've never voted SNP before, I say it to people in every corner of this country. Tomorrow is our opportunity to come together as a country to make our voice heard in Westminster louder than it has ever been heard before.